Thanks everyone for joining our Girls Night In online. It's a little bit not nighttime yet, but we're excited to join you here. My name is Judy Ni. I own a small shop in Philadelphia that is called Quology. We focus on modern Taiwanese food. Basically, it's a head fake. It's an organization that's dedicated to creating a sustainable food model, hopefully, for our community around us here in Philadelphia. I know the topic of the talk was very much about community and whatnot, and I think it's become increasingly important in a time like this for us all to focus on our individual actions and choices that we make as part of what we call systems. I think at the end of the day, you know, we talk in these esoteric terms and like, oh, well, this is a food system, this is a food supply chain, this is an ism, this is a system. But at the end of the day, I think one of the things we are starting to all realize is our own personal responsibility as part of all of these systems. And hopefully we can talk a little bit about that today, but one of the things that food is a great representation of is it's a analogy for basically a lot of the things that we're seeing in our society right now. Who gets food, what kind of food they get, how they get the food, the quality of the food that they get to, how much it's charged to them and whatnot that goes along with it is very much symbolic of a lot of things that we've been seeing in the past few months, especially since COVID-19 has happened. And the restaurant Quology was basically created, hopefully, to be an answer to all of that. But for those of you who came for a cooking class, there's a recipe in the chat. It has our chicken and garlic chive pot sticker recipe. We also do make two other types of pot stickers here at the shop. We make pork, shrimp, and spinach, the chicken and garlic chives, which you have the recipe for, and then we do make a veggie pot sticker option as well for those of you who are vegetarian or vegan, or also just love vegetables. Right now, I have the chicken pot sticker filling made here. So the way that we do our pot stickers is we make the filling in-house. We don't buy it from another source. Classically, you'll usually see pork as the most popular option, but we understand that a lot of people don't necessarily eat pork, so we do a great chicken one, which is probably the most popular out of our three options. The chicken comes from humanely raised, locally grown chickens, which are fed a great diet. They are out on land and pastured. I'm not sure if people are cognizant of what they're buying when they go to a supermarket, but one of the things I like to tell people is when food is cheap, it's cheap for a reason. So why is your food cheap? Is it cheap because of the person who's growing it is being disenfranchised? Is it because of the person who picks it? Is it the person who delivers it, the person who receives it at the restaurant, the person who's prepping it for you, the person who's cooking it for you, or the person who's serving it to you at the end? And you know, that sounds really nice, but sometimes one of the biggest things that we miss out on that conversation about cheap food is that it's actually cheap on the back of the end consumer. A lot of the time in America, we spend, I think, less than 9% of our discretionary income on food that you either buy through groceries or eating out. It's one of the lowest percentages of any industrialized nation. And if you look at the statistics going forward, we actually spend the most per capita for any industrialized nation on our healthcare. And there is I don't have scientific proof of this, but I'd like to think there's an inverse correlation between the two of those things, because as we get cheaper and cheaper food and we produce it in a cheaper and cheaper way, we're paying for it in the long-term health effects on our bodies. So one of the things we try to do here at Quology is to very much serve as a voice for the Taiwanese philosophy that food is medicine. Culturally, it was always something that we grew up and understood that what you put in your body directly correlates to how you feel. If you're not feeling well, then it's probably most likely due to something that you ate or something that you consumed the day before, the few days before, and the direct answer to that can usually be found in something else that you put into your body. So the chicken and garlic chive pot stickers, I'm happy to go into more about sourcing and whatnot, but I figure most people are actually here for cooking. So if you are looking for pot stickers, you can buy thin skins like this. If anyone has any questions after the class, you're welcome to send me an email, and I'm happy to talk to you through social media, and we can go through all these different details. But you get a round, thin skin like this. Some people like thicker skins. We're making pot stickers particularly in this shop. So pot stickers are a type of dumpling where the bottoms are seared and then the tops are steamed. So they have a different textural quality to them than, for example, a boiled dumpling, which generally speaking, you'll find thicker skins with them because they have to be able to withstand the higher boiling temperature. So round pot sticker. I do this terribly in the air, but it's easier to show you this way. My mom is actually really great at doing the floating pot sticker fold, but she's not here, I don't think, so she can't show this to you. So what we do is I take this, and what you'll do is take water, which I have right here. You can just dip your finger in it, and you can just put a little bit of water on the exterior of the pot sticker skin to get it nice and moist and supple. And then you're welcome to use any utensil that's easier for you. For me, chopsticks is easy, but you can use a spoon or whatnot and just bump in about how much you would like to put in your filling. So I'm pretty good at doing this just because I've been doing this since I was 5. But if you're someone who is not familiar with this, put less filling in it. So hopefully you can see it from here. But basically the way I do it is I join the 2 tops together. So it kind of looks like a cannoli. So you can see it from both sides. And my hands are shaking because I'm kind of nervous, so sorry everyone. And then an easy way to do it is to just kind of pleat one side first and then seal it. And then pleat the other side and then seal that as well. And this kind of dried out, so it's a little bit harder to seal. But I'll make another one for you. But if you don't get it to look fancy, that's okay. You basically just want the 2 tops to seal over so that when you're cooking it, it will hold its shape. So we'll do it again. Also, just FYI, we're fundraising for an organization called College Together. It's a workforce and education platform that allows people to work and earn and learn at the same time. I think one of the difficulties that we've seen in this time is that people need flexibility in earning income at the same time as they're actually learning. And a lot of the time with the rigid schedules that traditional college puts into place, it makes it difficult to make those choices. So you either have to usually choose between educating yourself and or making an income, because not every job can necessarily fit within a college schedule. So the good thing with, I guess, COVID-19 is that people have turned to a virtual way of learning things. And I hopefully that will become a more popular way to learn, and I think we'll adapt to it as well. But obviously you need in-house help as well. So one of the things that College Together does a little bit differently than everyone else is that in addition to the online learning, we provide in-house support as well, so that the curriculum, the education can be tailored to each individual student's needs. Because obviously not all of us learn the same way. And I think the formula of traditional education has not necessarily worked for a large population in our country. And it's great that there's going to be a new way for people to adapt to it. And it's increasingly important given times like this. So again, going back to the cannoli, like this on both sides. If you're not very comfortable with the pleating, you can just pleat like this. As long as both sides are sealed, you should be fine. And then for those of you who actually want to cook at the end of this, there are pot sticker cooking instructions on our website at baology.com, BAOLOGY.com. And so far, no one has any questions, so I'm just going to keep talking. So I started making pot stickers when I was about 5 or 6 years old. My grandmother, as in my paternal grandmother, there you go. Was a phenomenal cook. I think she's probably one of the best cooks ever in my life. And having said that, I've worked in super fancy restaurants and also been fortunate enough to go to a lot of them. But what she did very well was that she cooked from the heart. She loved nothing more than to prepare wonderful food for her family. And we were fortunate enough that she and my grandfather could live with us 6 months out of the year in the US. Pam, if you don't have a grinder or microplane, do you have alternative suggestions for tools to use for this? You could use a cheese grater. I think you can just if you're not if you don't have a grinder, you can also just buy ground meat. We just happen to do it ourselves because we butcher chickens whole and then we do it ourselves, and this way we can control the process. But you can also just buy ground meat in whatever preference of fat level that you'd like. I would tell people not to be scared if it's I would say at least 80% fat for the pork. Just don't be scared of the fact that there's fat in it. Fat is delicious. It adds a lot of flavor. And if it's the right type of fat, it's actually not bad for your body and will help provide lubricants for your joints and everything that are important in the long run. And yeah, a cheese grater will pretty much work with the, I love fat too. Fat is delicious. I think one of the important things that I would tell you before you make your pot stickers, if you do decide to grind it yourself, is to find out where you're buying your meat from. A lot of things in your body are sensitive. I think we're realizing nowadays that people's bodies have sensitivities to different types of things that they put into it. So to be mindful of that, also be aware that if you're eating a protein, whatever that protein has consumed will also be in their system as well, which therefore will pass into your system. So I feel like in the next few years, we're going to see an increased amount of sensitivities towards things that have been triggered by chemicals and hormones that not necessarily should be in our food, but have made its way over, for lack of a better way of saying it. The way that we do our chicken pot stickers here is we grind the chicken ourselves. We take something called garlic chives, which in Chinese are jiu cai. It's kind of like garlic and chives, but like a thicker, flatter plane. And they're incredibly fibrous, very, very, very common in Taiwanese food. You could probably grow it in your backyard if anyone is interested in that. My father grew it in our backyard growing up, and the only thing he would use to ever clean it was, or to disinfect it or prevent bugs from going on it, was he would spray. Can we buy the chicken from the same farm? I would tell you that chickens are pretty plentiful in most farms, so you can almost get it from anywhere. You could buy the filling from us if you'd like, if you don't want to do all the work for the grinding. We're trying to actually figure out a way to ship our fillings and our pot stickers in frozen form nationwide. So if you are interested in that, let me know. It's something that we're working on, just trying to make sure we can pack them in a temperature controlled environment. So this way it stays within the safe range while it's being delivered to you. It's always wonderful to be able to grind it yourself, but I realize that not everyone has the luxury of that much time and spends their time making pot stickers and really just want it at the end of the day to be presented to them. And then this way, if it's a frozen option for you, you can leave it in your freezer, and whenever you feel like cooking or don't feel like cooking too much, you can just put it in a pan, in a nonstick pan, cook it really quickly, and you'll have dinner in 15 minutes or less, and it can be responsibly sourced and also be good for you. As you can probably see from the ingredient list on the recipe, we're fairly transparent about everything that we make. We're not here to bamboozle you. We're always happy to share with you what's in our ingredient list, because that's the transparency you should expect from most of the restaurants that you're buying from. We're fortunate to be in Center City, Philadelphia, and have access to a lot of great farms. And one of the things that my husband and I have been fortunate enough to do is to be able to work with really great chefs in the past who have an emphasis on sourcing and good culinary techniques. One of the things we also realized working in those restaurants was that $250 per person is not an accessible price point for everyday eating. And if you really want to make a change in the food system or make a change in the way that people eat, you need to do it on a more accessible everyday level. And our hope is that through Bology, we can do that on an everyday level. Our food isn't cheap, but it is well priced for the level of quality that is going in there. We talk a lot about sustainability within the restaurant industry, and people talk about it from a sourcing perspective, but what you actually want to build is a sustainable system so that people can keep working and have a fair wage and live well and with dignity off of the income and fair work that they do on a regular basis. We're very fortunate. We have a small team here of 6 people, including myself and my husband. And we try to be as good to them as, I guess, owners as we would like for ourselves to be when we were in the position of being employees. I guess it's multi-decade experience now in restaurants has definitely shown us, the good and the bad sides of this industry. There's a lot of stuff coming out. There continues to be a lot of more stuff coming out from this industry in the press, in the newspapers. You're only going to see more and more of that. And what I would say to you as consumers, as decision makers in this economy that we have, is start asking questions of the businesses that you support, or the businesses that you're thinking of supporting, or the businesses that you already do support. If you want your country, if you want your community, and you want your businesses to reflect the values that you have, you need to support them with your dollars. We're for-profit entities, we're basically pass-through entities that when you give us money as a business, we give it to our employees, we give it to the farmers that raise this food for you. It's a lot of people are being devastated by what's happening right now, but conversely, a lot of people, just like you see in any stressful situation, seek opportunities. It can be a good way, it can also be a bad way. There are people who are definitely taking advantage of the fact that there are millions of hospitality workers out of work, and they're using this as an opportunity to get people on the cheap. That's not something that we want to do here. It's not something we support, but again, if you choose to support those businesses, you are reinforcing that behavior that you don't want to see. So we have been seeing a lot of this in Philadelphia, which is unfortunate because for such a great city with so much diversity, you know, we can talk all we want as restaurateurs, as chefs, as owners about what we think the system should be like. But at the end of the day, we can't do it without the support of the community around us. And the community means all the individual people who are on this phone call, who are outside of this building, who live in the building that our shop is in. And if your dollars don't go towards organizations that you support and value, then it cannot get to the people and the work that we do to support that. So, you know, I always do ask that when you go to a place where you make a choice, like ask questions, like restaurants that are transparent, businesses that are transparent will be more than happy to share with you the information that they have at their disposal. They may not give you specific recipes, but they should be able to share with you where they're sourcing from, how they hire, what's the diversity of their team, what does their team look like, how do they make decisions about where they buy things from, how do they make things. And again, we're not perfect. We're still very much a work in progress, but I think organizations with a growth mindset will also have a growth mindset for the people that they have on their teams, as well as for their sourcing. And I feel like I'm prattling on, because I am. So again, there's a few different shapes that you can also do with this. So with the Potstickers, and this dried out a little bit, so I'm gonna dab it with a little bit more water. So I don't know if everyone can see it, but let me go even closer. So that's the cannoli style. And then you can take the pleats, and I'm gonna show it from the aerial view because sometimes it's hard to see it otherwise, but you can do it this way, right? Like you basically want to make one side of it fold in, and then you wanna take that and have that line up with it. And then you can add another pleat here. And normally I would not do 2 pleats on each side because the number 4 is a terrible number within Taiwanese culture because it sounds like the word for death. So si is how you say the number 4 in Chinese, and si is to die. So it's not something that we try to do, but so when we pleat at least 6 total because 6 and 8s are good numbers within the culture, and we try to, you know, go with all of our different superstitions at a time. Thank you for that, Margaret. More restaurant owners need to think about their staff like you do. I would say that I think your strength as a consumer is that you can make restaurant owners who don't think like that think about it. If you choose to do that with your dollars, it will absolutely place a lot of pressure on them to make the right choices. You know, I think one of the things that we've learned through this difficult time is the importance of relationships and the importance of people and the importance of like how our interactions are with each other. Like maybe before we didn't know better, but now all of these things are coming to light. So what are you doing as an individual to educate yourself about the choices that you're making? You know, are you choosing to support businesses that support the values that you do? Are you empowering them with your dollars to have more strength in their voice? Or are you giving it to organizations that don't necessarily align with your values, but there's something about them that you support more? So there are always organizations that you can ask questions about, and they should be happy to share information with you. But there are plenty of people doing really great work in Philadelphia, in this entire country. There is no shortage of people who deserve your money and will work hard to be worthy of that. All you need to do is educate yourself. And you know, there are group leaders in all different cities and communities that will be happy to share this information with you. And you know, I'm only in Philly, but I know I've people all across the country. If you need places to be people to be pointed to who are doing the right work, doing the good work, you know, feel free to email me, feel free to like reach out through social media. I'm happy to start pointing people in the right direction or in the better direction. Andrew, can you freeze the pot stickers after assembly and cook at a later time? You absolutely can. It's a lot of if you do that, it takes a long time to make the pot stickers. Especially if it's your first time making them, you'll get better as you do it. But the best way, and I know it's a little bit hard these days with social distancing or physical distancing, my mom and dad used to talk about how when they were in college on Friday nights, a group of them would just sit around a table and they would just all make pot stickers. So the best way is kind of like the way we did it at home as well, which was I think similar to how they did it in college, is you kind of just break down responsibilities. Some people are just better at folding or borrowing the wrappers and borrowing the pot stickers. Like I'm really good at that. My dad is like the king of like pot sticker cooking at home. Like he's an engineer and it's super, he always has it timed out really well. And he gets the beautiful crispy bottoms that you're always looking for. So my dad's kind of like figured it out on his stove with his pan and that combination. So I would highly encourage when you are able to group with maybe 3 or 4 people, like it's a great way to be able to hang out together, do something, and then have something really delicious to eat later on, and just freeze them. Just put them in the freezer. Make sure when you're putting them on a tray like this, just make sure they're more spaced out. So this way, when they freeze, you can just kind of put them into a bag and then you can just keep them in a Ziploc bag when you're done with it. And then whenever you're ready, just like keep them frozen until you're ready to cook them. And if the instructions on the website aren't clear enough about cooking when they're frozen, text me, email me. I'm happy to walk you through it, go through a FaceTime and whatnot to make sure we're doing it correctly. How do you find out about the organizations? Depending on where you're located, I'm happy to give you a list of at least people to start with, and it depends on what type of topic you're focused on. Some people are focused on food accessibility. Some people are talking about, social justice issues. We just had a great conversation with the people at CHOP, which is the Children's Hospital here. There are people doing a lot of great work. If you have the energy and the time and desire to learn about it, start asking questions. Like I'm happy to point it out if you are looking for a specific topic. I'm not an expert at obviously most things, but I can find you an expert who will be great about talking to you about that. And then you can contribute your time or your energy to that as well, because the need is only growing during this time period. And it's important for us as a community, as people who are part of that community, to do our best, because from a very selfish perspective, it is, if we don't take care of each other, we will see the ripple effects of what's happening right now. And our responsibility as individuals to our community does not override our individual freedoms necessarily, but I try to think of it from a pay it forward type of perspective. Like my parents are, in a higher risk group because of their age. I have like thyroid issues, so I have autoimmune issues. So you think about what you would want for people to be like around my parents. I would hope that people who are around my parents would do the same thing that I would do for them. So, I wear a mask. I put that on in order to make sure I'm being respectful of other people's spaces. And hopefully we can do this together as a community, as a country, to kind of take care of things for each other, because we do have a social contract to one another, even if we don't want to exercise it on a regular basis. But we are part of a larger group, like either part of our immediate families, part of our like larger extended families, and part of our communities. And if we don't take responsibility for our individual actions, it's going to be hard for us as a country to make the necessary changes that we need to in order for us to keep doing what we do well, which is come together as a diverse and, innovative country that does and always rises to the occasion to do wonderful things. And it would be great if we could see that kind of momentum happen this way as well. And yes, family time during quarantine. It's actually family time really great in general, just to be able to do pot stickers, because then you can catch up on all the family gossip. You can talk about all the people that, who aren't there, find out all the small things that are going on, and then just catch up and, it's a less direct way of perhaps finding out information. You can find out about what's going on with your sister, what's going on with your cousin, and also just sometimes talk politics if it doesn't create any sort of family strife in that way as well. And I guess I wasn't sure if there would be any more questions, but if anyone's within the Philly area and you want to do this and you don't want to spend the possibly hours breaking down chickens and grinding and prepping things, feel free to purchase a pot sticker kit. You can call the shop for pickup. We're open Tuesdays through Saturdays right now. and from 12 to 8. You can also email us if you email us at hello@bology.com, all those emails come to me, and we can figure out maybe a delivery time, and we can figure out a meal kit way of doing this. I might I'm considering doing more individual classes, so it's a smaller group so that we can actually interact at the same time, so that people aren't on mute, so we can actually have real-time conversations about this, and then we can go into like the odd pleading and stuff like that that can be a little bit harder to see if you're not actually in spaces with each other. Before this, we used to do Potsticker classes, and it was awesome. Like, we could just hang out and people could chill, and you could bring a bottle of wine and just have a really great time with it. But unfortunately, right now, we're all a little bit socially distanced, but this is still a good way we can do virtual Potsticker parties in case anyone wants to do that. And then other than that, I guess I think I answered most of the questions from everyone. Thanks, everyone.